Welcome to Simply Aunt Aggie. For the next few videos, I'll be reading from the Nature Library Birds, written by Neltje Blanchan and published in 1926. In this video, I'll be reading about the thrush family, which includes the bluebird, robin, wood thrush, and the veery. The bluebird. Length 7 inches, about an inch longer than the English sparrow. Male. Upper parts, wings and tail bright blue, with rusty wash in autumn. Throat, breast, and sides cinnamon red. Underneath, white. Female. Has duller blue feathers, washed with gray, and a paler breast than male. Range. North America, from Nova Scotia and Manitoba to the Gulf of Mexico. Southward in winter from Middle States to Bermuda and the West Indies. Migrations, March, November. Summer resident. A few sometimes remain throughout the winter. Is there any sign of spring quite so welcome as the glint of the first bluebird, unless it is his softly whistled song? No wonder the bird has become the symbol for happiness. Before the farmer begins to plow the wet earth, often while the snow is still on the ground, this hardy little minstrel is making himself very much at home in our orchards and gardens while waiting for a mate to arrive from the south. Now is the time to have ready, on top of the grape arbor, or under the eaves of the barn, or nailed up in the apple tree, or set up on poles, the little one-roomed houses that bluebirds are only too happy to occupy. More enjoyable neighbors it would be hard to find. Sparrows will fight for the boxes, it is true, but if there are plenty to let, and the sparrows are persistently driven off, the bluebirds, which are a little larger though far less bold, quickly take possession. Birds that come earliest in the season and feed on insects before they have time to multiply are of far greater value in the field, orchard, and garden than birds that delay their return until warm weather has brought forth countless swarms of insects far beyond the control of either bird or man. Many birds would be of even greater service than they are if they receive just a little encouragement to make their homes nearer ours. They could save many more millions of dollars worth of crops for the farmers than they do if they were properly protected while rearing their ever-hungry families. As 2 or even 3 broods of bluebirds may be raised in a box each spring, and as insects are their most approved baby food, it is certainly to our interest to set up nurseries for them near our homes. But when people are not thoughtful enough to provide them before the 1st of March, the bluebirds hunt for a cavity in a fence rail or a hole in some old tree, preferably in the orchard shortly after their arrival, and proceed to line it with grass. From 3 to 6 pale blue eggs are laid. At first, the babies are blind, helpless, and almost naked. Then they grow a suit of dark feathers with speckled thrush-like vests, similar to their cousins, the baby robins, and it is not until they are able to fly that the lovely deep blue shade gradually appears on their grayish upper parts. Then their throat, breast, and sides turn rusty red. While creatures are helpless, a prey for any enemy to pounce upon, nature does not dress them conspicuously. Adult birds that are able to look out for themselves may be very gaily dressed, but their children must wear somber clothes until they grow strong and wise. Young bluebirds are far less wild and noisy than robins, but their very sharp little claws discourage handling. These pointed hooks on the ends of their toes help them to climb out of the tree hollow that is their natural home, into the big world that their presence makes so cheerful. As might be expected of creatures so heavenly in color, the disposition of bluebirds is particularly angelic. Gentleness and amiability are expressed in their soft musical voice. Truly, they sweetly assert when we can scarcely believe that spring is here. And terwee, they softly call in autumn when they go roaming through the countryside in flocks of azure. Nevertheless, in a fair fight for the possession of a birdhouse, they will worst English sparrows 9 times out of 10. With the first cool days of autumn, bluebirds collect in flocks, often associating with song sparrows, robins, orioles, and kingbirds in sheltered, sunny places where insects are still plentiful. Their steady, undulating flight now becomes erratic as they take food on the wing, a habit that they may have learned by association with the kingbirds, for they also have adapted the habit of perching upon some conspicuous lookout and then suddenly launching out into the air for a passing insect and returning to their perch. Long after their associates have gone southward, they linger like the last leaves on the tree. It is indeed goodbye to summer when the bluebirds withdraw their touch of brightness from the dreary November landscape at the north to whirl through southern woods and feed on the waxy berries of the mistletoe. The robin, length 10 inches, male, dull brownish olive gray above, head black, tail brownish black, with exterior feathers white at inner tip. Wings dark brownish, throat streaked with black and white eyelids. Entire breast bright rusty red, whitish below the tail. Female, duller and with paler breast, resembling the male in autumn. Range, North America, from Mexico to Arctic regions. Migrations, March, October, or November, often resident throughout the year. The early English colonist, who had doubtless been brought up like the rest of us on the Babes in the Woods, named the bird after the only heroes in that melancholy tale. But in reality, the American robin is a much larger bird than the little European robin redbreast, and less brilliantly colored. John Burroughs calls him, of all our birds, the most native and democratic. How the robin dominates birddom with his strong, aggressive personality. His voice rings out strong and clear in the early morning chorus, and more tenderly subdued at twilight. It still rises above all the sleepy notes about him. Whether lightly tripping over the lawn after the early worm, or rising with his sharp, quick cry of alarm when startled, to his nest nearby, every motion is decided, alert, and free. No pensive hermit of the woods, like his cousins the thrushes, is this joyous, vigorous bird of the morning. A man of science, who devoted many hours of study to learn the great variety of sounds made by common barnyard chickens and expressing their entire range of feeling, from the eggshell to the axe, could entertain an audience for an evening by imitating them. Similar study applied to robins would reveal surprisingly rich results, but probably less funny. No bird that we have has so varied a repertoire as Robin Goodfellow. Few people can recognize him by every one of his calls and songs. His softly warbled salute to the sunrise differs from his lovely evensong just as widely as the rapturous melody of his courting days differs from the more subdued, tranquil love song to his brooding mate. Indignation, suspicion, fright, interrogation, peace of mind, hate, warning to take flight, these and a host of other thoughts are expressed through his flexible voice. Perhaps no one thing attracts so many birds about the house as a drinking dish. large enough for a bathtub as well, for birds are not squeamish, and certainly no bird delights in sprinkling the water over his back more than a robin, often aided in his ablutions by the spattering of other bathers. But see to it that this drinking dish is well raised above the reach of lurking cats. Robins prefer to build near water, bringing coarse grasses, roots, and a few leaves or weed stalks for the foundation of the nest, and pellets of mud in their bills for the inner walls, which they cleverly manage to smooth into a bowl shape without a mason's trowel. And fine grasses for the lining, they saddle it onto the limb of an old apple tree. They prefer low branching orchard or shade trees near our homes to the tall, straight shafts of the forest. Some have the courage to build among the vines or under the shelter of our piazzas. A pair of robins reared a brood in a little clipped bay tree in a tub next to a front door where people passed in and out continually. Doubtless, very many birds would be glad of the shelter of our comfortable homes for theirs if they could only trust us. Robins, especially, need a roof over their heads, and a house for them need have no sides, merely a roofed-over shelf. When they foolishly saddle their nest onto an exposed limb of a tree, the first heavy rain is likely to soften the mud walls and wash apart the heavy, bulky structure when down tumble babies and cradle and all. There are far too many tragedies of the nest after every heavy spring rain. Too much stress is laid on the mischief done by the robins in the cherry trees and strawberry patches, and too little upon the quantity of worms and insects they devour. Professor Treadwell, who experimented upon some young robins kept in captivity, learned that they ate 68 earthworms daily. That is, each bird ate 41% more than its own weight in 12 hours. The length of these worms, if laid end to end, would be about 14 feet. Man, at this rate, would eat about 70 pounds of flesh a day and drink 5 or 6 gallons of water. How hard the father and mother birds work to keep their fledglings crop-filled. No wonder robins like to live near our homes, where the enriched land contains many fat grubs, and the smooth lawns that they run across so lightly make hunting for earthworms comparatively easy. Toward the end of June, one may see robins flying in flocks after sundown. Old males and young birds of the first brood scatter themselves over the country by day to pick up the best living they can, but at night they collect in large numbers at some favorite roosting place. Oftentimes the mother birds are now raising second or even third broods. We like to believe that the fathers return from the roost at sunup to help supply those insatiable babies with worms throughout the long day. Every 2 or 3 minutes up spring the little heads, mostly gaping yellow mouths like Jack-in-the-Box. After family cares are over for the year, robins molt, and then they hide, mope, and keep silent for a while. But in September, in a suit of new feathers, they are feeling vigorous and cheerful again, and, gathering in friendly flocks, they roam about the woodland borders to feed on the dogwood, chokeberries, juniper berries, and other small fruits, changing their diet with the season. By dropping the undigested berry seeds far and wide, they plant great numbers of trees and shrubs and help to make the earth beautiful as they travel. With them, every day is Arbor Day. It is a very dreary time when the last robin leaves us, and an exceptionally cold winter when a few stragglers from the southbound flocks do not remain in some sheltered, sunny woodland hollow. The wood thrush, length 8 to 8.3 inches, about 2 inches shorter than the robin. Male and female, brown above, reddish on head and shoulders, and shading into olive brown on tail, throat, breast, and underneath white, plain in the middle, but heavily marked on sides and breast with heart-shaped spots of very dark brown, whitish eye ring. Migrations, late April or early May, October, summer resident. Here am I, come the thrush's 3 clear bell-like notes of self-introduction. The quality of his music is delicious, rich, penetrative, pure, and vibrating, like notes struck upon a harp. If you don't already know this most neighborly of the thrushes, as he is also the largest and brightest and most heavily spotted of them all, you will presently become acquainted with one of the finest songsters in America. Wait until evening when he sings at his best. Noli aioli, noli aioli, peals his song from the trees. Love alone inspires his finest strain, but even in July, when bird music is quite inferior to that of May and June, he is still in good voice. A song so exquisite proves that the thrush comes near to being a bird angel, very high in the evolutionary scale. Pit, pit, pit. You may hear sharply, excitedly jerked out of some bird's throat, and you wonder if a note so disagreeable can really come from the wonderful songster. By sharply striking 2 small stones together, you can closely imitate this alarm call. Social as the wood thrush is, and abundant too, it is also eminently high-bred, and when contrasted with its tawny cousin, the veery, that hides in the nearest bushes as you approach, or with the hermit thrush that pours out its heavenly song in the solitude of the forest, how neighborly and gracious and full of gentle confidence it seems. Every gesture is graceful and elegant. Even a wriggling beetle is eaten as daintily as caviar at the king's table. It is only when its confidence in you is abused, and you pass too near the low-hung nest that might easily be mistaken for a robin's, that the wood thrush so far forgets itself as to become excited. Pit, 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 sharply reiterated, is called out at you with a strident quality in the tone that is painful evidence of the fearful anxiety your presence gives this gentle bird. Too many guardians of nest, whether out of excessive happiness or excessive stupidity, have a dangerous habit of singing near them. Not so the wood thrush. Come to me, as the opening notes of its flute-like song have been freely translated, invites the intruder far away from where the blue eggs lie cradled. While sitting, the mother bird is quite tame. A photographer placed his camera within 4 feet of a nest, changed the plates, and clicked the shutter 3 times for as many pictures without disturbing the gentle sitter, who merely winked her eye at each click. Wood thrushes seem to delight in weaving bits of paper or rags into their deep cradles. A nest in the shrubbery near a bird lover's home in New Jersey had many bits of newspaper attached to its outer walls, but the most conspicuous strip in front advertised in large letters, "A house to be let or sold." The original builders happily took the next lease, and another lot of nervous, fidgety baby tenants came out of 4 light greenish-blue eggs. But, as usual, they moved away to the woods after a fortnight to join the choir invisible. The veery, length 7 to 7.5 inches, about 1/4 smaller than the robin, a trifle smaller than the wood thrush. Male and female, uniform olive brown with a tawny cast above. Center of the throat white, with cream buff on sides of throat and upper part of breast, quite lightly marked with wedge-shaped brown points. Underneath, white or with a faint grayish tinge. Range, United States westward plains. Migrations, May, October. Summer resident. To many of us, the veery, as Wilson's thrush is most often called, is merely a voice, a sylvan mystery reflecting the sweetness and wildness of the forest, a vocal will-o'-the-wisp that entices us deeper and deeper into the woods. The song descends in a succession of trills without break or pause, but no words can possibly convey an idea of the quality of the music. It is as if two voices, an alto and a soprano, were singing at the same time. Wee you, wee you. The familiar notes might come from a scythe being sharpened on a whetstone, were the sound less musical than it is. The veery, that never claims an audience, sings at night also, and its weird, sweet strains, floating through the woods at dusk, thrill one like the mysterious voice of a disembodied spirit. Shy, elusive, the veery is nevertheless more common in New England than the wood thrush, whose range is more southerly. During its spring and fall migrations, only does it frequent the elms and maples that men have planted. Take a good look at its tawny coat and lightly spotted cream buff breast before it goes away to hide. Like Kipling's cat that walked by himself, the veery prefers the wild, wet woods, and there its ringing, weird, whistling monotone that is so melodious without being a melody seems to come from you can't guess where. The singer keeps hidden in the dense, dark undergrowth. But it is not quite the recluse that the hermit thrush is, that smallest of the thrushes, with a voice as heavenly as an ethereal hymn, where it floats upward from the dim, deep forest. The cool woods of the Adirondacks, the White Mountains, and the Laurentian ranges in Canada are its favorite summer resorts.